Well met by moonlight, dear ones. I am Curiosity, and this is my jamboree, a firelit gathering for explorers of the uncanny, the frightening, and the hard to explain. Tonight, we spin tales of vanishing rooms, ominous houses, and encounters with the departed. So settle in by the crackling fire, lean in close, look at your hands to make sure you aren't dreaming, and let's begin. Our first story is from r/glitch in the Matrix, posted by oneidamojo. This happened about 3 weeks ago. I had the day off work and my cousin Harold asked if I could drive him to pick up new tires for his truck. They were being sold in a town just an hour away, and basically it was a 2-lane country highway, straight shot all the way there. About halfway there, he points and says, "Hey, look at that house over there. It has vultures all over it. I've never seen that before." Sure enough, on the left side of the road was an old 2-story country farmhouse, with 7 or 8 vultures sitting on the roof. There are another 3 or 4 circling the property overhead. Immediately I blurted out that maybe they smell something dead inside, and we just stared as we drove by. Anyway, we got his tires, and it slipped from our mind. On the way back we had the windows on the truck down, and suddenly we got a good whiff of rotting flesh, and sure enough we were passing by that house again, but we didn't stop, and went home. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I called Harold to tell him so. He said he couldn't even sleep as it was bugging him. I proposed that the right thing to do was to go back to the house, get the address, and call it in to the police for a welfare check. What if someone was dead inside? What if they had family? He agrees and we immediately set off. We couldn't locate the house. We drove all the way to that town where we got the tires, then turned around, and we couldn't find it on the way back either. It was like the house ceased to exist. There was no house, no vultures, or the smell of death that matched what we saw the previous day. We even went out and did the same thing the next day, with no luck. But now the more I think of it, what we saw made no sense. Although it was a country highway, there had to be thousands of cars and trucks on it every day, not to mention police patrols. Surely one of those would have noticed a creepy old farmhouse with a ton of vultures on it, and put 2 and 2 together. I still can't explain it, and it still bothers both me and my cousin. Well, OP, there's nothing like that itch at the back of your mind of something you can't explain. Our second story was posted by Keyfig1923. It does feature some brief discussion of drug overdose. Okay, after much contemplating I decided to post this. I've been a huge fan of Glitch in the Matrix stories for years, and it's honestly made me a bit more in tune with my surroundings, as I've wanted to catch a glitch for myself. However, I could have never imagined what the universe had in store for me. I'm also going to say I completely understand if no one believes me. I honestly don't believe it, and it happened to me. However, I can't tell my husband, and everyone else will just think I'm crazy, so I'm going to post it here, where there seems to be open-minded people while I sort through things. In early 2020, my sister-in-law lost her battle with addiction. After years of our family fighting for her to get clean, and a good stretch where it seemed to be getting better, a friend erased months of progress, which inevitably led to her overdosing. The past 2 years had been hard, and my husband has been trying to hold himself together. But it hit him hard with the loss of his sister. He tries for me and his daughter, but I can tell he's never going to be quite the same. A couple of weeks ago, our local county fair came to town. It was a poor excuse for a fair, with 5 shady kids' rides, 2 food vendors, and in general not much to do. We were inside a large event building, where they had various local arts, quilts, and a car show going on. The city tried to revamp the fair this year with a new location, and in general a different company, which didn't work out as they planned. After browsing for a while and seeing almost everything, we decided to head out, but I decided to take a potty break first. I left my husband, mother-in-law, and daughter by the handful of vintage cars, and went to the bathroom. The bathroom wasn't in the same building, but behind it in a smaller, standalone building. As soon as I walked in, something really just seemed off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt uneasy in a way I've never felt before. It felt as if I wasn't supposed to be there, like something was wrong. I quickly used the bathroom, freshened up a little, and headed back out, only to find what was just a beautiful blue sky was now full of dark clouds and looked like rain. I go back between buildings but stop dead in my tracks as my niece runs up to me grabbing my hand. "It's going to rain. We need to go now." She's 7 and had been living in a neighbouring state with her dad after her mum passed away. She was set to start school in a couple of days, and I knew she was hours away. I'm genuinely confused, but my husband's birthday was just a few days prior, so I think maybe they surprised him with a quick visit. I am, however, floored when I see my sister-in-law walking towards me, my mother-in-law and husband trailing behind, talking casually with the stroller. "We're gonna head outside before the rain starts," she says, and I can feel my lip tremble as I just looked at her. She looked like she did when she was clean, her face clear, and at a healthy weight. Her hair was a bit lighter, which was no surprise as she was always experimenting with her hair. I wanted to run up and hug her, but I didn't. My husband looked happy and a bit more put together than I'd seen him in over a year. I mindlessly followed them outside, feeling happy and glad to be here in this moment. Something told me not to question it, but thoughts of us sitting in the funeral home, picking out her urn, and her mum writing her obituary swirled in my mind as I watched my sister-in-law and niece buy their tickets and then head to the Ferris wheel. "Hold these for us?" my sister-in-law asked me as she handed me a strand of 4 folded-up tickets. I agreed, and gripped the tickets in my hand as I watched them climb onto the ride. And as I watched it spin, my head also began to spin. I felt dizzy, and felt the blood leaving my face as I passed out. I woke up on the floor of the dirty bathroom, slumped over right in front of the toilet as if I'd passed out and slipped off the seat, even though I was fully clothed. It took me a minute to stand up and figure out what had happened exactly. I just replayed the about 15 minutes worth of events that had happened. I was beyond confused, but after a while I made my way out of the bathroom right as my mother-in-law was coming in. "There you are, we were getting worried." The sun was now shining bright again, and my scruffy-faced husband was standing there looking at his phone as our daughter slept in the stroller. I glanced around, wondering where my sister-in-law was. I almost asked them, but stopped myself and decided to let this play out, hoping they were finishing up the rides. But we left shortly after with no mention of my sister-in-law or my niece. I checked Facebook on the ride home and cried quietly in the back as her memorial page was still up. I felt off since and chalked it up to me passing out, and even decided to make a doctor's appointment. However, last weekend when I was washing the shorts that I'd worn that day, I found 4 red tickets folded up in my pocket. I still have no explanation, as these are the exact tickets my sister-in-law had handed me in what I thought was some sort of dream or hallucination. I pulled the shorts out of the dryer right before leaving for the fair that day. I hadn't worn them since, and we went straight home after the fair. We got an armband when we paid to get in, but never received any tickets. We didn't ride any rides, enter any raffles. I even checked with my husband to make sure he didn't enter a raffle or something and sneak the tickets into my pocket. He denied it, also agreeing we didn't receive any tickets that day. I still have them, and could post a picture. But they're literally tickets, so I don't feel like they would prove anything. I don't know what to make of this. I distinctly remember my sister-in-law buying 8 tickets. The Ferris wheel took 2 each, and that left my niece with 4 tickets to ride the other 2 rides she wasn't too big to ride. This was an actual conversation that took a good 5 minutes as we circled the rides, testing to see which ones she was too tall to ride, as most were aimed for really small kids, and the tickets were overpriced. Plus, with the approaching storm, there wasn't much time to ride them more than once. I remember this all very distinctly. My sister-in-law always wore leggings and didn't have pockets, which is why she handed me the tickets to begin with. I keep replaying the short time in my head, as everything fits together so weirdly. I estimated it all happened in a span of 15 minutes, which is approximately the amount of time they said I was in the bathroom. I don't have any explanation. I feel as if I shifted into another universe, where my sister-in-law never died. I almost feel like she was pregnant, as her belly was a bit more round. Did I manage to jump into a timeline where she never died? Where she stayed clean and got her life together? She was so vibrant and happy. My husband and mother-in-law were happier than I've seen them in years. My daughter was the same. I honestly don't know what to do. I will never tell my husband. He has begged for 5 more minutes with his sister, and it's unfair that I apparently got 15. Well, I found that story very bittersweet. Here's hoping your family finds a path to true happiness soon. Our last story comes from r/creepy encounters, posted by Micus Lou. When I turned 18, me and 2 of my friends decided to take a trip to our local casino. We mostly just played simple games like slots and video roulette, since it was our first time going to a casino. After losing some money, we decided to search for something to eat. Pretty much everything was way too overpriced, so we wandered around for a bit. Eventually we reached a hallway along the border of the main floor. We made our way down the hall looking for food, but everything was closed. We started to notice that the hall was completely vacant of people. As we wandered further down the hall, we reached an oddly intriguing small room through a double doorway. This was the only entrance into the room. It was completely empty except for us 3 and about 10-20 slot machines. We were bored, so I decided to throw $5 into the slot machine and spin a few times. After my second or third spin, an odd-looking man, early to mid-30s, appeared from behind the slot machine, seemingly out of thin air. He began watching me play and started getting uncomfortably close to us. We weren't very worried since we outnumbered him 3 dudes to 1. However, we were very confused. We grew more and more uneasy the longer he stood there not saying a word. Eventually, my friend decided to ask him, "What's up?" The man looked at us for a second before asking if we were all brothers. None of us look even remotely similar, so we told him we're all just friends. He said, "Oh, that's great," and proceeded to ask if he could join our group. We told him that we all came together, and lied in saying that we were actually planning on leaving soon. He told us that we should stay and play with him, and he said, "My good friend Rachel over there knows all the good machines," and pointed to the other side of the room. We slowly peer around the machine and all immediately became horrified. Nobody else was in the room with us. He was pointing into an empty corner. We all stand up from our seats and slowly back out of the room, not letting our eyes leave the man. Once he was out of sight, we turned around and sprinted down the hallway back into the main game room. We all vowed never to go back down that hallway ever again, and I never did, but curiosity eventually got the better of us. About a year and too many casino trips later, we're playing blackjack back at the same casino with a 4th friend. He gets bored and hungry and says we should look for food. After walking around looking for food, we made it back to the entrance of that very hallway we vowed never to return to. The 4th friend said we should search down there for food. The rest of us tell him no, and explain to him that we can't go back down there. He asks why, so we tell him about our experience down that hallway 1 year prior. He says we're bullshitting, and that there's no room of slot machines in the location we described. He explains that his mum was a worker at the casino, and he would have known if there was a rogue room of slots in the middle of nowhere. So we did the one thing we could to convince him of our experience. We decide to lead him to the room. We made our way down the hallway in search of the room, but after walking for a few minutes, we reached the end of the hall. Confused, we turned around and searched again, thinking we had somehow missed it. No room. We came to the conclusion that they must have moved the machines out of the room, since the casino changes things round quite frequently, so people don't gain a sense of direction on the game floor. So we once again walked down the hallway in search of an empty room, or at least a set of closed doors that would enter the room. Nothing. No doors even remotely close to where we remembered the room. We were completely dumbfounded, and started to question our sanity. All 3 of us remembered the room in the same location, yet there was nothing. There was no room with slot machines. There was no room at all. To this day, neither me nor my friends understand or can explain how this happened. That must have been jarring. Like the first story with the disappearing house, it's very unsettling, not only to not be able to explain something, but not being able to find the thing that needs explaining in the first place. The sun is rising, and reality starts to seem more real. The jamboree is at an end once more. My thanks to everyone who sent in stories or gave me permission to narrate theirs. Remember, I upload new stories on Mondays and Fridays, so please be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out. If you have any thoughts about the stories I've narrated, why not leave them in the comments below? And don't forget, if you enjoyed your time by the fireside, to pour sand over the like button so you don't end up on the news. If you'd like a story of yours narrated, I have a submission form linked in the description, and I would love to hear more of your curious experiences and unexplained happenings. I will see you soon, dear ones, and until then, may your nights be dark and your dreams just a little curious.